A very good morning and welcome to Media Monitor, the show that monitors and evaluates media coverage of leading stories of the week and puts the media in the spotlight. I'm your host, Alicia Jadi, and we are live right here on SABC News Channel 404. We are all local, all global, and all the time. A very good morning to you. In our lineup today, we look at the media coverage of the strikes that may cause a recession. We look at child abuse and the World Hunger Day. We analyze the cholera outbreak in the Northwest Province, the taxi wars and the endless Boko Haram saga. And before we go, we will delve into the ANC cartoon saga. Has the media lost its respect in this regard? We want you to tell us. Now, to give us an analysis on media coverage of these stories, let's welcome Mr. Patson Malisa, Chairman at OAU's National Committee in South Africa, Ms. Minette Niveau, Senior Researcher at Media Turn, and of course, making a return, Mr. Wadim Schreiner, Head of Analysis at Oneco Group. And later on the line, we will be joined by Carol Buse, Assistant Director at the Johannesburg Child Welfare, Mr. JJ Mans, Chairman of the Retreat Taxi Association, and Makosandi Letumana, Chairman of the Vryhron Taxi Association, who will be giving us insight into the taxi wars. And lastly, from Abuja, Nigeria, we will be joined by Mr. Madu Onora, Bureau Chief of the Guardian newspaper. Remember, you can call us to give us insight on the stories that you think deserve to be covered by the media, but were omitted on these numbers, +2 711 714 6847, 714 6843, and 714 6857. You can share your views and comments on Twitter at SA Media Monitor, and of course, like our Facebook page, Media Monitor. A very good morning to you. In our top story today, the newly appointed Minister of Mineral Resources in South Africa, Ngwakora Matlodi, has appointed a task team to intervene to end the 18-week strike in the platinum sector. The establishment of the team comes after economists warned that South Africa could plunge into a recession. This is what Minister Matlodi had to say.
Sleepless nights, trying to resolve the strike, put everything on hold. I'm focusing on it. I've met Solidarity, WASA, and AMCU. They are willing to find ways of resolving the strike. My sense is everybody has moved a bit closer.
All right, and remember, you can start calling us and, of course, giving us those stories that you feel deserve to be in the media, but the press did not, unfortunately, cover it. Now, panel, a very good morning to you, and thank you for joining us right here on Media Monitor this morning.
Morning.
Panel, let's start with this. At last, the much-needed government intervention in terms of the striking, the mining sector. We know really the hype is about the new minister, and we really know the hype is about the new and how about the new cabinet will actually perform. But what role should then the media be playing at this critical stage? Let's start with you, Wadim.
You're referring now in particular to the mining story in the beginning. I think it is good that we've got a new cabinet and a new minister that's going to go and look at these freshly, not from the historical background. I would hope that media will give the newly appointed people a benefit of the doubt. They haven't really always been doing that to the predecessors and the other people involved in there. However, I think media should also go and put the appropriate pressure on that intervention and task team to go and come to a speedy solution, or at least to moving these things forward, because as the figures from South Africa show, we don't have a day to lose to find a solution to the end.
Patson.
Well, I can also say that the media has a role to play in terms of objectivity, especially with regards to both sides having a platform to say their end to the best of their ability to the public, because at the end of the day, many people might not even understand why strikers are actually going out for as long as they have. And at the same time, private sector as well might also not be understood for why they're not willing to necessarily go to the full lengths that they are. Many factors that are hidden from the public in terms of this ought to be brought out by the media. And I really believe that this is the opportune time for them to engage everyone and not necessarily just look at the negativity that is surrounding it.
Minette, what do you think?
Well, I think the media has been quite consistent in covering issues related to labour problems, strikes, wage negotiations and the like. So I would say the media has not been neglecting their task to be a bit of a watchdog and to inform people. For me, what's more interesting, though, is the fact that the specific issues that started in the platinum industry, if we're thinking back to Marikana, obviously it's not the proper start of strikes and labor disputes, but the way that the media has covered it, now when we see strikes in other industries, it's immediately a media hot topic. So I feel that the media is almost running away with it and, you know, drawing comparisons between industries where it might not really be fair. And we're thinking, you know, of the postal strike earlier this year, for example. I don't know, I mean, I can't really say what the impact of that was, but it's a much smaller issue that got a lot more media coverage, and I think that's largely related to the media covering the platinum industry strikes.
Now, panel, there's a warning of a possible recession here. Do you think that the media has then fully unpacked of what these strikes could possibly do to the economy if it's going to that extent of a recession? Wadim?
Well, I think we were expecting a negative outcome of the mining industry strike. It's just that we obviously need to go and have figures to go and support our findings. So we have to go and wait for the official body Stats SA to go and confirm the figures. We have them now. It's a year-on-year drop of 0.6%. Having said that, it still means that there is a growth. It doesn't mean that there's a decline, but it's not good as what we have. So I think it's fair of the media to go and wait for that particular figure to go and come out and now unpack and to go and say what it is that we have to go and do, than to go and speculate it just to go and be sure that it's perhaps not the case. But I think the discussion in the past week or so since the release also showed that we've got to go and look at it beyond just the mining strike. It's very important to go and say mining strike contributed, but it doesn't mean that when we solve the mining strike that suddenly the GDP is going to go and increase and we're all going to go and have an economic boom.
True,
so we've got to go and look at that fact as well.
Patson, it seems that the media is actually focusing on the mining strikes as the sole, way that's actually paving the way for this possible recession.
Yes, actually, to be honest, as we all know, mining has actually been declining in terms of its contribution to the GDP of South Africa. So what the media should also be doing is looking at other factors in terms of how far is the economy given the opportunity to normal people to be able to engage it and to be able to grow it. And that's one of the things that I really hope coverage will be given to in the coming few days.
Which other areas can media cover, Minette, just to give us, all the mitigating factors that are actually contributing to the recession?
Well, obviously the media, can't touch on absolutely everything. It is a very complicated situation. But I feel that, this just sort of supports my point of labour issues being the hot topic and then certain other points being ignored. I mean, when we look at a possible recession, you don't want to go around, from a media point of view, it wouldn't be responsible to fearmonger. But at the same time, it is important to mention, what are the possible factors and, what is going on, reporting on the facts. And it's like Vadim said, there's no point in speculating about if this continues, we might see this or that.
Yes.
Report on the facts.
All right, now, I still want to know, is this story going to get proper follow-up or it's just the excitement of the new minister? Please, Patson.
Well, I really hope, I pray that they will be able to follow up with it towards the end. But at the end of the day, as we know, media always gives you what sells. And I hope that there is enough hype amongst the ground to actually want to find out more about this story towards the end, yes.
Wadim, do you think it's because of the new minister?
Well, the new minister is a reason to go and catch on to it, but I also disagree that media just kind of report on the things that sell. I mean, they have their own interest in solving that economic situation because it impacts them significantly as well. But I think Minette mentioned a very important point, and that's the whole issue around fear-mongering. I think that is very, very critical. We must not fall into the trap and now just see the doom and gloom. There's been some focus now recently on how challenging it will be for small, medium enterprises, considering that the big business doesn't work. We've got a new minister in that area as well. That's a specific area of the industry we need to go and unpack. We must not create now the impression that, it's the end of the world for the small, medium enterprises. We need to go and look beyond that. And I think perhaps that's a area to go and focus on as well, beyond the strike.
Absolutely. Poor minister is going to get into office with so much pressure to strictly, resolve the, how many weeks has it been now since the strike? A lot of weeks and time has passed. Absolutely.
Days, yeah.
Well, when we return, we're going to discuss where the media covered the looming crises of child abuse and, of course, the dire issue of international hunger. Join the conversation by calling us on +2711 714 6843, 714 6847 and 714 6857 and let us know which stories, anywhere you are, you feel were not adequately covered by the media. Share your views and comments on Twitter as well at SA Media Monitor and like our Facebook page, Media Monitor. Don't go anywhere. We return shortly after this. Carol, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank
good morning.
you so much. A very good morning to you, Carol. How do I pronounce your surname? Buse, right?
Buse, yes.
Yes, all right. Thank you so much, Carol. Please stay on the line. We'll be talking to you shortly.
Perfect. Thank you.
Ma'am. Oh, that's so loud. That's... Welcome back. You're still watching Media Monitor, and you can be part of our discussion today by calling us and, of course, sending us tweets in our next story with the incident of a 36-year-old father who abused and kept 5 of his children captive for almost a decade, including his wife in the East Rand, and another horror case of a mother abandoning her 8-year-old child who is faced with a disability, locked alone in their home in Alexandra. We are seeing an escalation in child abuse. With Child Protection Week starting from today, we've seen multiple stories in the media this week regarding violations of child rights. Now, panel, very quickly, every week we get media reports of child rapes, brutal murders, mutilations, kids dying on their way to school, from school. Why is this now? Why are we getting stories specifically about, child incidents? Is it specifically because it's Child Protection Week? And why is that? Why should we leave it until Child Protection Week? Patson.
Well, I think at the end of the day, these days of commemoration are given for the sake of actually raising an awareness. Mm-hmm. So I really believe that the media has, in fact, played quite a good role in that regard. That they have given us the opportunity to see exactly what is the true face of what's happening in society at this moment in time. Mm-hmm. Of course, it must not remain to just this week alone, but it must actually be a weekly basis. They must be basically the monitors of society in regards to that, in helping us to be aware of what exactly is happening around us, what violations are actually taking place, and how can we as the society take initiatives to break it apart.
What do?
Yes, but there's another dimension to it. I mean, we feel that there's perhaps more than usual reporting on the issues about child abuse, and I don't think that is the case. I think child abuse has unfortunately always been there. I think the volumes are probably more or less the same, but I think the awareness over the past couple of years created through the weeks that we have at the moment makes a greater awareness to journalists to go and start reporting it, and on the society as well. So in other words, where in the past people were perhaps ignoring child abuse in their community, now they are more aware about it, so they're raising the alarm, so it gets into the media. So the fact that it is more in the media is also a reflection of a greater awareness in the society raising that particular issue, which is good at the end of the day for the issue, hopefully.
Now, Minette, children are regarded as the most vulnerable members of society because they can't make life decisions for themselves, but they can't reach out to media. Why doesn't then media reach out to the kids?
Well, what our research at Media Tenor has shown is that when children are portrayed in the media, it's often in light of child abuse or violence against children, and the same thing for women being portrayed in the media. It's often stories, related to violence against women and the like. So I think the media is trying to reach out. Unfortunately, the media is trying to reach out on very negative issues only. And child protection awareness and all of that, it's very important. But what about children who are being protected and who are being looked after?
Yes.
There are lots of institutions that are doing very good work in this regard, and they seem to be falling off the media agenda. And I agree with what Vadim has mentioned in terms of it has been on the media agenda quite a lot, and globally as well. Our research has shown that especially in the UK, people are very interested in the topic. But that by itself is not enough. If we're talking about instituting change, and hopefully the media can play a big role in that.
Protecting our children.
Exactly. Protecting those 5 kids who were held captive for almost 10 years.
And people live right next to those people. I just cannot believe this. Let's now welcome on the line, of course, Ms. Carol Buse, who is the Assistant Director at the Johannesburg Child Welfare. Carol, thank you so much for joining us on Media Monitor. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Now, Carol, firstly, we just want to understand, how often does the media engage with your organization on the daily cases that you deal with and across the country in terms of child rights? Has the media, in your experience, been supportive and effective at all?
Well, I do think that the media does engage, but I do think that it is only on the bad news stories. I think that the bad news is what seems to interest people more. And I think just listening to what the other panelists have said, I think the social pressures have increased tremendously over the last number of years. And the social pressures always impact on the most vulnerable members of society, and those are the children. So the children are being impacted far more negatively nowadays than they were, say, 20 years ago. You know, and I'm saying 20 years because I've been in this with Joburg Child Welfare for just over 20 years, and I've seen an escalation in neglect, abuse, and really violent crimes against children. Good news doesn't sell as much. So when something good happens with a child, we don't get as much media coverage of what has happened.
Now, Carol, what steps has your organization taken in assisting all these families that have been in the media so far? And what about the families not so lucky to attract media's attention? We know that the worst affected are those in the so-called forgotten areas.
That is our line of business. We deal every day with the abused, neglected, abandoned, orphan children of the Johannesburg area. And that is something that we have been doing since 1909, and we continue doing it. But the problems get worse and the resources get less. So it's actually a very difficult job to do.
Now, Carol, all right, before I quickly let you go, Carol, how can the general public assist and reach child welfare if they can't get the attention of the media?
I think the general public can help us. We're always looking for places where we can place children. So if people would want to become foster parents or would want to adopt, we would welcome that, because we believe that a child should grow up in a family. And if the situation arises that we do need to remove a child from a family, which is a last resort, then we would like to place them with a family. And also in helping us by alerting us when something happens. You talk about the family, people living next door. Surely they should have known that something was happening. Tell us about it if it's in our area. Obviously, if it's not in our area, we will give you the contact details of the organization that should be dealing with that family. But if it's in our area, we will go out and investigate. So be alert. We hear so often of things that have been happening and people not noticing that. And we tend to really only focus on what we need to focus on. Our lives, our families, our interests, and so on. And next door, something might be happening. Let's all be a little bit more interested in our neighbors. Let's all be a little bit more interested.
A little bit nosy.
Yeah, and also when we see families, when we see somebody driving and there's a child standing on the front seat, you know, maybe indicate to the person driving that the child should be strapped in. Little things like that. We need to actually take a little bit more action and not be blinkered.
Thank you so much, Carol, for sharing your views this morning. That was, of course, Ms. Carol Buse, Assistant Director at Child Welfare. You heard it first right here on Media Monitor. But, panel, is it really an excuse for us to say that we didn't know that it was happening? When there's so much media and such accessible, there's many accessible points of media, those kids could have, gone on cell phones, but we don't even know.
Yeah, it's difficult to go on. I mean, look, it's an individual case, I think, that we've got to go and look into as well, each and every one of those cases. But I think what Carol's been saying towards the end is a very, very important one. I mean, we put the onus on the media, and we basically say, you media, go and alert us and go and tell us what to go and think about. But all that we have to go and do is use common sense. I mean, we've got to go and stop just, focusing on ourselves and just care about ourselves and just look around. We are worried about the consequences that, our actions have. Crime Line had similar incidents. People were worried about reporting crime. Will I be in danger? So we also need to go and understand what are our rights. In other words, what is it we legally can do? What is it we should be doing? How are we going to be protected if we are to go and be whistleblowers?
Show proactiveness, basically, all around.
But it shows that we need to go and have an interest. And I think, what is lacking at the moment in society to go and show a little bit of interest. And perhaps, there can be a campaign running beyond just that week that basically gets, that social glue to go and be working again.
Thank you so much. And that's where we leave it for that particular topic. Now, in our next story, 20,000 people die from poverty every single day, and 10% of them die from famine, which too is prominent, especially in third world countries. Sudan and Ethiopia have been in the headlines from this dire outbreak. We ask our panel whether there was adequate media coverage leading to International Hunger Day. Let's take a quick look at this insert.
We work very closely with Food Bank South Africa, who work with the Department of Education to identify the schools most in need. So based on that, this year being the first year of the program, and obviously the pilot, is we've targeted the most needy schools as per the information given to us by Food Bank as well as the Department of Education. But for us, it's a starting point, so who knows where the future may lead. We definitely have very big plans for this going forward.
It doesn't feel like normal. You run around, you get like a stomach ache, you don't concentrate properly in class, like you don't you really need something to eat in the day, but you don't have anything. And then there's nobody to give you food, so the school helps you with some food in the morning. So I think that's wonderful.
I can definitely see the improvement in the concentration of these learners. They are they're better, well behaved. They're happier. They are basically, essentially, it's a happier child. A fed child is a happier child.
All right, before we delve into that issue, let's welcome our first caller today. Chico, a very good morning to you. What's your question or comment, please?
I want to comment on Marikana.
Please go ahead, sir.
I think the president must just drop his guard and pay those people who have been killed at Marikana. Remember those 44 people killed there? I think he must just give them hardly 2 million each, and he'll shut the country's loud-speaking mouths up. And then the miners, the employers, they are playing games with the black people. They want black to kill black because they are seated there. They send their black staff to go and speak to the people. Why don't they, the miners, self come and speak to the media? Not to the black people. That the spectacles. There's a guy who's got spectacles on, speaking for the mine. He must just shut up. He knows nothing about the mines. What is happening in the mine, down the ground, in the mining depths there. He knows nothing. He just sits in the office. He must see people suffering there. I've been there. Not in Marikana. I've been in Kalina. I've been there. I've seen people die in front of me, down there. And then they must just stop playing games with black people. This has been going on for a long time. I've been in Kalina in 19-something there, 1948 and so on. People have been dying there. But now, in Marikana, I think it's worse. They must just pay those people and forget about arguments. The president must stand up and tell those miners, either they lose their licenses and pay or pay those people. There are miners who will come. There are people who want to take over all those mines. I'm sure of that.
All right, Chico, thank you so much. All right, thank you so much, Chico, for your comment out there in Pretoria. You can also express your views like he's just done by calling us and, of course, sending us tweets and, of course, liking our Facebook page. Now, panel, it was World Hunger Day on Wednesday. How do you feel about the media coverage leading up to? Wadim?
Disappointed.
Very disappointing,
very disappointing.
indeed.
What I found particularly disappointing, and perhaps the other panelists have got different opinions on there, is that I found globally and in South Africa quite a lot of focus less on the actual hunger issue and the fact that there's an issue outside of the country, but instead we focused on what social media did. And again, I've got no issue with this one. So the $1 campaign and getting people involved to go on hunger and to fast and to go, and celebrities getting involved is all quite well. But my problem was that became the story about hunger rather than hunger. And I'm just a bit find it bizarre that we worry more about if a celebrity X can go and make it on $1 a day than the 840 million people around the world who have that every day. So that is where media, in my opinion, again, got the issue wrong and started focusing on themselves rather than on the issue. So that was a bit disappointing, in my opinion. But perhaps there's differences.
Minette?
No, I completely agree with that. There's that whole sense of if we get a cool hashtag, people will retweet or follow or whatever, and everyone gets excited and jumps on the bandwagon, but it has no true impact. No. The issue isn't, can you survive on, I think it's now £1 a day. That's not the question. Yes. The question is, there are people who have to, and that £1 a day limit is obviously, it's a fairly arbitrary figure. There are people who have even less than that, and there are people who are in much worse situations. And, I completely agree with what Vadim is saying. The same thing, later on when we touch on Boko Haram, the hashtag bring back our girls. It's a lovely sentiment, but the social media campaigns are almost getting more attention than the actual issue.
Actually, one person was quoted as saying that, liking a page of somebody's organization is not going to put a meal onto the plate. And that's exactly what Minette is saying. I mean, apparently now hunger kills more people than AIDS, malaria and tuberculosis combined. But we don't even know much about this. How come we don't know about this, Patson, through media?
Well, I think, let's put, for example, here in South Africa.
And what the hell is famine? Do people even know what that is?
Well, I think that will be the media's job to educate them.
Absolutely.
But I will say this, that in South Africa, the main causes of poverty, of hunger, obviously, right between poverty and economic situations and how the economy is set up. And as you know, you need to work in order for you to get food.
Absolutely.
So those implications should have been highlighted with regards to this particular day. However, I think because of the fact that these situations are reported most of the time, the economy of South Africa is always in question. The job losses are always in question. All these things are always in the media eye. But then the implications of such happening is not necessarily put out to the world and said, this is the result.
Very true. Thank you so much, Patson. Let's take Xolani from Kempton Park on the line. Xolani, very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. Xolani? All right, okay. We seem to have trouble hearing Xolani. Seems to be having other things on the television there. Now, panel, once again, South African media isn't fully reporting on this matter because we haven't seen stick-figured or fleas-infested images from South Africa, just Ethiopia and Sudan. Is this another way that South African media is not alerting the people because it's not affecting them specifically? Very quickly, Wadim, we have to go to break.
I know exactly what the answer is going to go and be. Newspapers and media are going to go and say there's a hunger fatigue out there. We've been reporting about this for decades, and therefore it's going to be difficult for us to go and find the new angles. Well, I disagree with fatigue. Fatigue can only be there if there's been a lot of coverage. There hasn't been a lot of coverage. There can't be fatigue. It's not an excuse. That's short and sweet from my side.
Thank you very much, Wadim. And when we return, we're going to look at the coverage of the cholera outbreak and the widespread taxi violence that has taken over the Western Cape. You can be part of our discussion by expressing your views as to which stories you think should have been covered by the media by calling us on +2711 714 6843, 714 6847 and 714 6857. Share your views and comments on Twitter as well at SA Media Monitor and like our Facebook page. Stay with us. This is Media Monitor. Who? There's no Kuman. Welcome back to Media Monitor, and you can be part of our discussion by calling us on the numbers that will appear on the bottom of your screens. There they are, not forgetting Facebook as well as Twitter. In our next story, health authorities in the Northwest Province have detected bacteria in the Lekwatimane Municipal Dam in Bloemhof, which they believe is behind the cause of widespread diarrhea. It is unclear when the bacteria contaminated local water supply, but this week 3 babies died while 5 others were admitted to hospital for observation after they drank the contaminated water. Let's take a look at this clip.
My child has lost his life. When he had severe diarrhea, I took him to the clinic, but he died there.
My 12-year-old child has been sick since Monday. Our toilets are blocked. Now we don't have water to cook with.
The good news is that any epidemic follows the same graph. It goes up, it stabilizes, and then it goes down.
Contractors are back, and this situation would be normalized. And we are told that by the municipality that at least by Saturday, people will have clean drinkable water.
Now, panel, this is a very huge story. The contaminated water, a child is dead. I mean, a 9-month-old baby is dead. Why isn't media then delving further into how this contamination occurred? We've only had very sketchy reports and none of them linking the two together. Wadim?
I think absence of knowledge, again, it's always difficult to go and get stories from, areas that are not immediately accessible. So you've got to go and send your journalist out there. Journalists have been, not making excuses, I'm saying journalists have been busy a bit about, the elections.
Dead. That's 3 babies,
so we have
lives.
to, unfortunately, that's the news cycle. 3 babies have to go and die, and then we're sending newspapers out. I think the stories is still going to go and come out. It's also going to go and be linked to other issues, such as service delivery on a local government level. What happens to maintenance of pipes, what happens to go on cleaning.
Absolutely,
so
yes.
it's something that should actually go and develop into more stories.
It's a municipal problem, the water, yes.
I hope that it does, and I hope also that it doesn't just focus on the area of Bloemhof, but looks at other areas around the country. Because again, we shouldn't have a situation where we're zooming in one, making that the issue, and then it disappears, poof, and makes being a unique story. It isn't unique.
Let's take Xolani, who's back on the line with us from Kempton Park. Xolani, are you willing to talk to us at this moment? A very good morning to you.
Yes, I am really willing to talk to you.
Please go ahead, Xolani.
Yes, my name is Xolani Kala. I'm a shop steward.
Go ahead, Xolani.
Yes. I just want to talk on the issue of Marikana strikers. This issue of Marikana, the media coverage around this issue, has been so negative in terms of they are exposing that how it's affecting strike miners negatively, which is completely misleading the public on the ground. And again, the issue which is media is not covering on Marikana bosses, which they recently get huge millions of bonuses, which is completely, the media is not covering on that, showing the public how are the bosses playing around black people. Why the media is not doing that? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Xolani.
That is the main issue, which is media is playing sides. It's playing sides in this thing. Recently, the program of SABC, it was down there in Eastern Cape, showing how the poverty is affecting the strike miners at their homes. You are not showing how those CEOs, they are enjoying luxury life with those millions of bonuses they've recently getting right now while the miners are on strike.
Thank you so much, Xolani, for your comment there. Xolani is calling us from Kempton Park. And now, panel, I think we spoke about that. Is there anything you want to particularly add to his comment?
I think the fact that we've got two callers, that despite the fact that we've got
The
4 to
same
5
point,
issues that are
yes.
pointing the same point, it just shows to us the importance and the magnitude that this particular issue has. But it also shows to us that it's a very emotional aspect.
Yes.
And I think media, and perhaps us here as panelists and as experts, the same way, we're trying to go and look at it very rational. We're not minors, we're not involved, we're not in that situation,
Yes.
but we're talking about it. So, obviously, we can always go and talk from the back, but it is a very emotional, it's a very hard, so it's a very bad situation. I don't think any one of us can really go and grapple the severity of the situation on the ground. And I think what we're hearing through the callers, and Kolani in particular, is the frustration that it is so bad, but they are crying out and we don't hear them. They feel that they're not being heard.
It's
and
not a good
and it's
feeling
not the
at
first time. It's a theme that continues going on. It's heartbreaking to go and think how emotional people are reacting to this one. It's very, very sad.
Very, very sad indeed. Let's wrap up the cholera discussion panel. If you remember, not so long ago, it was the water shortage issue in the very same province, and very brief reports, and now this death of an infant, still no media interrogation of how these two connect. What are we going to do, Patson?
Well, obviously, there will be a need for more engagement with local authorities to actually find out exactly how has water been made available to the public in that particular area, because most of the times you obviously realize that not much inspection has been done as to the processes of delivery of water to the people, and hence, many things can be gone undetected and unaccounted for. And I guess the media has got that opportunity to play that accountability on behalf of the public to find out exactly how has the process of water distribution.
Because I don't think any of those people would understand to go and open a case of wrongful death because this child died through these circumstances. Really, the media needs to be proactive in really bringing our communities and giving them a lot of knowledge. Well, let's leave it there for that story and move on to our next story now. Cape Town's recent flare-up in taxi violence in the Maizenberg and Retreat areas has residents of Capricorn Park living in fear. 5 people were shot and killed in 2 separate incidents in the areas on Wednesday, and many residents are now too scared to travel by taxi. Police believe the shootings are linked to taxi violence, while taxi drivers have reportedly declared the 2 routes as no-go zones. On the line, we're now joined by chairperson from the 2 taxi rival unions, Media Monitor, getting the first-hand account. Panel, let's start with you before we delve into, before we get the account from the taxi associations. How did the media cover the story? We know that if there's taxi violence, or for example, in KZN, it's synonymous with KZN, you get a widespread media coverage. But this wasn't in the news that much. Minette?
Yeah, definitely, not as much coverage as we've seen with similar stories. But you can also argue that the media is taking note of this. To me, the more shocking thing is, why has government not stepped in? And not just now, it's because this is a story that, as one of the panelists remarked earlier in the break, it's nothing new. We see taxi violence often, and it's about the same kind of stories. And the taxi community or associations are very important, very vital to getting people to work.
You know what actually surprises me here is that any violence in the Western Cape is synonymous with gang violence. And now these two have actually been, there's been allegations that there could be a possible gang violence in here. What do you...
I have to admit, I'm guilty as charged. I didn't even notice that there was a taxi violence in the Western Cape. Perhaps I read it somewhere, but I wrote it off as something
gang thing. Yes.
Gang thing, and another one, and completely irrelevant. And I suppose that's perhaps my mistake. I'm in that industry, but maybe that's also the way that's being approached. I think there's certain stereotypes that we attach to certain areas and certain provinces,
very true.
And we don't query them. So it's very quick. We'll put it into a box. That's where it is. We'll leave it at that. It isn't actually what it is, and just because it is a box and because it is a stereotype doesn't mean that we shouldn't go and open it up and talk about it. Again, Minette is absolutely right. It affects how people get to work, particularly in a country where public transport is challenging, to go and say the least. And if people are too afraid to go to work, it impacts on their incomes and impacts on their families and their abilities to go and pay school fees. There's a ripple effect. Again, Marikana, on a different scale, of course, it's got a ripple effect onto the social sphere, and therefore it's urgent, as urgent as it can be.
All right, let's now welcome Mr. Makosandile Tumana, Chairman for the Vrygroen Taxi Association, on the line. Mr. Tumana, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Good morning, ma'am.
Now, Mr. Tumani, we understand that through media reports that a fight over routes has led to violent killings between you, the Vrygrond Taxi Association, and, of course, your rival Retreat Taxi Association. Please give us your side of the story, sir.
Okay.
Please go ahead, Mr. Tumani.
Okay. Firstly, I would like to say thank you for giving us this opportunity.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Firstly, if ever I can have this time to pass my condolences to those who passed away in this type of scenario. The life of Mr. Ngulunga passed, Sabata, Nundata, Nweba, Aslana, Tonane, Nogwanya, from Retreat Taxi Association, and one of the colored guy who also lost his life in the taxi. We are saying, as the leadership of Kodeta Vrygrond, we are extremely sorry to the members of the families of these people.
All right.
Yes, the situation is too bad. People are fighting for the routes. But if you can check this problem, it comes from very far. Because when you look at this situation, it's caused by the agreement that we made with our government in 2010, July, on the 7th of July 2010.
Mr. Tumani, did the media contact you personally to clarify these facts before reporting? How do you feel about the recent reports? Is this really a gang-related war, Mr. Tumani? That's what we really want to know. Mr. Tumani, sir?
No, you see, it's very funny when you receive information that it's a gang-related war.
Yes, please clarify this for us, sir.
Because the people who got killed here are the members of the taxi industry. The name that I've been already read for you is the members of the taxi industry. So we are assuming that the gangsters are involved because of some of people in the industry using the gangsters to kill the innocent people in the taxi industry.
Thank you so much. All right. Thank you so much to Mr. Tumani there, Mr. Makhosandile Tumani, the chairman of course, the Vrygrond Taxi Association on the line. We did extend an invitation to Mr. J.J. Mans, the chairman of the Retreat Taxi Association, but unfortunately, we can't seem to get hold of them. We're going to take a very quick ad break, and we're going to be back with more Media Monitor. Stay tuned. This is Media Monitor. Welcome back to Media Monitor, and you can be part of our discussion by contacting us on the numbers that appear at the bottom of your screens. There they are, not forgetting Facebook as well as Twitter. Now, panel, it seems there's a general outcry for us to continue talking about the AMCU and what's happening. And Wadim, you raised some very interesting views about the previous callers, the fact that they face similar problems and it's getting to that emotional stage. But why isn't media then tapping into that and giving us that emotional side of things, Patson?
Well, I think at the end of the day, with a situation like this, one has to be very delicate at how they handle such situations. You know, as you know, media has a very huge part to play in bringing out the perception of a certain situation. And with regards to this is one of the situations where if the media plays it wrong, we might find ourselves having a much bigger problem than what we're actually supposed to have. And I think they should remain in a situation where they give more of the progressive, more of the parts where there needs to be work done, and not necessarily just the general anger, because anger alone will not be able to change the situation. The situation needs proactive engagement. And that engagement will need voices. Obviously, yes, the media will have to then play that role.
Yes.
But they must be very delicate in how they handle such and how they actually portray it.
Because it could turn into another Marikana saga. Right. Absolutely. Let's take Brian from Springbok on the line. Brian, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. Your comment, sir.
Yes, hello. My comment is that the media is not actually delving into the strike situation and looking at the role players involved. I think they are only looking at face value. AMCU is the organization that is pushing the strike. But there are other role players there, like the Benchmark Foundation, those NGOs that actually traps AMCU to go on with the strike. And that is why we're not finding a resolution in the strike. It's because there are those organizations, non-governmental organizations, that actually perpetuate the strike. And that is why we're not going to find a resolution. It's because there are more political motives in the strike than the actual demand of 12,500. And that is why it's problematic. And one would want the media to go beyond just the AMCU and the AMCU president, but to go and look who are the other role players and what role do they play. Those non-governmental organizations like the Benchmark Foundation and the political organization like the Workers' and Socialist Party that has the socialist agenda that they want to impose on South Africa. And this strike, if one looks at it, it's going to lead to South Africa become ungovernable because these NGOs are actually mobilizing communities to strike against the government. They are mobilizing beyond just AMCU and the immediate needs of workers. And that's the problem with the strike. And everybody is looking at the 12,500 demand as an actual demand. And that is actually not the case because you can't go into negotiations with one demand and no falling back position. Negotiation is a give and take process. This is not happening. Why? It's because there's a political agenda beyond the strike. And that is why I want to allude the media to look at that. And besides that, if you look at what happened in the beginning, where the National Union of Mine Workers was actually negotiating with the mine bosses, the mine bosses negotiated in bad faith, where they went back and actually make the agreement, the collective agreement, null and void. But NUM stick to the agreement, and we should be asking then, what is the purpose then of the mining companies of going in such a route? And the only conclusion that one has is that the mining bosses itself wanted to weaken NUM, and they were union bashing, and have brought AMCU, and AMCU becomes the pawn in the game.
Thank you so much,
that AMCU was brought in, and when they were brought in, now the mining bosses can no longer control the situation because they were not aware of the other forces that have a similar interest. One, the mining bosses did not want NEM to be strong because of the progress in terms of policy and legislation that they were involved in. We know that mining bosses want to have a total control of the labor forces, and they want to pay less wages, so they want to give people bad conditions. And what we have seen over the years of NEM being developing this is that you've seen that NEM progressively we're addressing the issues of wages, we're addressing the issues of socioeconomic conditions through policies, and try to influence fiscals around that.
Thank
and I
you,
think
Brian.
these are the things that are not being addressed.
Thank you so
very
much, Brian. Thank you so much for your insightful views. Very interesting observations, of course, from Brian. Let's take Twesa from Rustenburg. If you're still on the line, Twesa, very good morning to you. Thank you for holding on to the line. All right, I think we seem to have lost Twesa on the line. But panel, is there anything you want to add? I think Brian mentioned something very interesting, that it seems like there's this perception around media that it's AMCU versus the miners' best interest at heart. Minette?
Well, I personally disagree with that. I think mines need miners as much as miners need mines.
But do mines then need unions? Because that's what basically the general perception is all about. All right, let's take Twesa back on the line. Twesa, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us again, and your comment, please.
Yes, morning, ma'am. My comment on media, I just want to ask the media people, because recently on the issue of Marikana,
yes,
the media is talking about the AMCU side, whereby the AMCU, the mine people are striking. And then what bothers me is that the media doesn't go in mining and find out what is going on underground. They just analyze what is happening on top in the offices, but they did the underground. People are working hard. You are working, President, I'm talking as a miner. I'm working hard underground, but the media doesn't do any changes. So recently on SABC, they have this argument concerning the Marikana issue, whereby President Mabanda talks straight to the mine people. They don't comply with mine charter, but the media doesn't go to the mines and find out what's going on. So I just beg the media to come out with plans, not to blame people while they are struggling, so to bring good issues to change our country. So thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much to Twesa from Rustenburg, also a miner, calling us and giving us his account of the situation. It seems that really there is a general misunderstanding between the miners and the unions and the general platinum producers themselves. So it seems that media may need to go a step further in terms of trying to address these issues. You've heard it right here on Media Monitor. People do want the media to be the bridge and their voice of reason. And after the break, we're going to read your tweets and also discuss which stories my analysts think should have made headlines but didn't, and what they anticipate will be the most talked about topics for this coming week, not forgetting the ANC cartoon saga. Share your views and comments on Twitter at SA Media Monitor, as well as on Facebook. We'll return shortly after this. Don't go anywhere.
He made a very looped argument,
Yeah?
and I didn't really,
Are we
I didn't really understand properly what his argument was actually all about.
For me, it sort of came across as if AMCU was the victim in this situation.
Welcome back to our final segment right here on Media Monitor, which is where we get to make our most loyal viewers very popular when we get to read some of the tweets on some of the topics that we've been discussing today. And of course, let's see what some of you have written to us today. Dr. Mazwai V. Volklega says at SA Media Monitor, a show not to be missed with at Alicia Jali. Thank you so much at Mazwai Volklega for always being loyal to us. And of course, Des Liebenberg says, let's hope so. He's at least trying, but workers want money, not promises. But it is crippling the economy at the same time. Oh boy. Thank you so much, Des Liebenberg, for your comment there. Kolani Ngwegazi says, Minister Ramatlodi can succeed if he's going to ask mines to pay production workers 12,500 Rand per month. Whoa, that's a tall order. Thank you so much for your comment there. Let's take Sima. Sema says most children in remote areas are abandoned by their mothers. They go and spend child grants on their cosmetics. No one cares. And of course, Sima, you can contact the Child Protection Services there, as you heard Ms. Carol Buse earlier on today. As a community, you can do something. Pranisha Naidu says we need campaigns encouraging child protection, love and care. Thank you so much, Pranisha. That's how we all feel across the board. And of course, last but not least, Sangoma says the story is trigger. It is alleged that the mother is an addict. What contribution did she have in this? And of course, maybe that's a new point for the media to actually go and discuss this and actually even look further into the matter. Panel, we've got just a minute for you to each tell me what you think will be the biggest, most talked about stories this weekend. Well, let's start with you, Minette.
Well, I think definitely cabinet reshuffle that will still remain quite prominent on the local media agenda.
All right.
I believe the strikes will also be quite prominent. Yes.
All right.
Yeah, the economy is going to be the topic. We're going to go and unpack what it means, are we going to a recession or not? And then I really, really hope that we're suddenly going to go and start focusing on the FIFA World Cup, which starts in 12 days.
Absolutely.
We hosted it 4 years ago. Brazil hosting it now. We've got a good story to tell. We're not telling it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And unfortunately, panel, we can't talk about the cartoon story today because we've run out of time. Thank you so much. Our viewers' contributions and suggestions is highly valued. Remember, you can email us your views about the show at mediamonitor@sabc.co.za. Share your views and comments on Facebook as well. Go to www.facebook.com/Media Monitor. And please like our page. You can also follow us on Twitter at SA Media Monitor. Thank you so much for watching Media Monitor today. Join us again next week for all local, all global, all the time news from myself, Alicia Jali, and the rest of the QTIV team and my blessed panel. Have yourself a blessed Sunday. Goodbye.